Good morning, dear students. So, today we are going to discuss the last topic of upper limb, that is surface anatomy of upper limb. So, surface anatomy is now very important because you will be having a separate section during your practical exam. So, to check the structures from the surface of the body before we dissect, we need to feel the bony landmarks, we need to palpate and feel the arteries, veins, we need to feel the muscles. Okay, before we cut any part of the body, right from the surface, we are trying to figure out certain structures. That's what is surface anatomy. Now, because we are done with upper limb, we would be discussing surface anatomy of upper limb. So, a small picture which I have just put as a cover page will help us to understand few things like this area number 1. Hope you remember, it is nothing but this is the surface marking of deltoid muscle where you can just palpate and feel for the round contour of shoulder because of the presence of underlying deltoid muscle. So number 2 area, it is under this window. I'll try to move this window or we will see in the other picture. So at this picture we have this clavipectoral triangle. Yeah, I hope you can see little. Yes. Okay. Yes. So this area is clavipectoral triangle. Okay. Then this number 3 area is the pectoral region, or we have the pectoralis major minor muscles, right? Then number 4, you can see from behind. This is the posterior view. So here you have the scapular region. Number 5, this area is axillary region, and this is the anterior view. Hence, this is the anterior aspect of the arm and anterior aspect of the forearm, then anterior aspect of the palm. Okay, and these are the digits including the thumb. Now when you see from the posterior aspect, again this row, one number is representing deltoid muscle, 5 is representing axilla, 7 you can see this is the posterior aspect of the arm, and 9 is actually the posterior aspect of the elbow, 11 is representing the posterior aspect of forearm, then we have the posterior aspect of the wrist, then posterior aspect of the dorsum of the hand, and here we have the digits. So that's how, that means we are just looking at the surface of the body and trying to figure out certain bony landmarks, muscles and vessels and nerves. That's what is surface anatomy. Now the objectives, by the end of this lecture, you should be able to palpate and feel the bony prominences in your own body. Try to check as we proceed. Palpate and feel different muscles and muscle groups and also tendons. Feel the pulsation of most of the arteries of upper limb, that is the radial artery especially. Locate the site of most of the superficial veins in the upper limb. I hope you remember the names: superficial veins, cephalic vein, basilic vein, median cubital vein. So now let us describe what surface anatomy is. So it's a branch of gross anatomy that examines shapes and markings on the surface of body as they relate to deeper structures. It is essential in locating and identifying anatomical structures prior to studying internal gross anatomy. So it helps to locate, identify the affected organ, structure or region in the disease process. That's what you do when the patient comes to you. We do not directly cut and we do not start working over the body, right? To do any surgical procedures. We need to just palpate and feel for the structures so that we locate the underlying structure and we try to determine if there is any existing underlying pathology. Okay, that's how surface anatomy is useful for us clinically. Now again, this is a comparative study of two pictures where we are being shown the surface anatomy, we are also being shown the underlying muscles. Okay, so this picture is the posterior view of the back. You are finding arm and forearm, like dorsum of the hand and the digits. So here this bony landmark is acromion process. Okay, so this lower part on the lateral side of the forearm, we know we have radius bone. So in the radius bone, in the lower part, we have styloid process of the radius bone. This point is anatomical snuff box, right? Then now if you just dissect and try to see what is lying underneath, we know this point we have the spine of the scapula, we have deltoid muscle, okay, behind we have triceps muscle, isn't it? Then below the spine of scapula we have infraspinatus from the lateral border of the like scapula bone. If you remember, we have teres major, minor above, major below, and back muscles we have discussed. We have latissimus dorsi, isn't it? Once you finish the back, deltoid, and the posterior aspect of the arm, in the forearm we have extensor compartment group of muscles, right? So if you just start from the lateral to medial side, if you remember, we have extensor carpi, radialis, longus, and brevis, right? Isn't it? Then we have extensor digitorum, then extensor carpi ulnaris. Peeping from the anterior compartment, we also find part of flexor carpi ulnaris also. Okay, extensor digitorum will split into four tendons, we know that. And the superficial veins, what we have from the lateral aspect, starting from the dorsal venous arch, we have the cephalic vein. The medial continuation is basilic vein. So this is nothing but a recapitulation of all the topics what we have studied in upper limb. You need to put that knowledge into practice now so as to figure out the things in a living body. That's what is surface anatomy. Just I have put few slides to revise the muscles so that as we proceed it becomes easy for you when we discuss further. So what are the, see this is the posterior view of the superficial muscles of the right shoulder and brachium. Brachium is nothing but hand, right? So posterior aspect, this trapezium shaped muscle number one is trapezius. This is the spine of scapula. Below the spine we have infraspinatus. From the medial border of the like scapula bone, if you remember, we have rhomboids muscle. Rhomboideus major. Okay, this is the triangle of auscultation which you are finding. So this muscle is trapezius at the lower border of the trapezius, upper border of the latissimus dorsi, and between the rhomboids a triangular area is there, that is the triangle of auscultation. We know this big bulky muscle which form the posterior wall of the axilla, it is nothing but the latissimus dorsi. Okay, there is one muscle in the anterior abdominal wall, few muscle fibers are reflected behind, that is the external oblique abdominis muscle. Okay, or external abdominal oblique muscle, anything is fine. This is a very well known muscle, very easy to remember. Round contour of shoulder is nothing but deltoid muscle. Then along the lateral border of the scapula, we have teres minor and teres major muscles, right? Then see behind and the posterior compartment of the arm, we have triceps, right? So we have, see this is the lateral head of the triceps and this becomes the long head of triceps, okay? So these are the muscles what we see. The same picture you can see the trapezius has been reflected. You can see the spine of scapula more clearly. Hence, this becomes supraspinatus. This becomes infraspinatus, isn't it? Then we have teres minor muscle, below which we have teres major muscle. This is latissimus dorsi, external oblique abdominis muscle. Triceps has been dissected very clearly to show its various heads, isn't it? So this is the long head of triceps, which is marked as A. Then this is the medial head of triceps, which is marked as B, which will be seen after cutting the long and lateral heads. This is the lateral head of triceps. Okay. So actually this is the lower triangular space which we have discussed, where we have, you remember radial nerve and the profunda brachii vessels? Yes. This is the upper triangular space where we have posterior circumflex humeral vessels and axillary nerve. Okay, now a few more muscles. You can exclude the muscles of head and neck region because we didn't finish this area yet. But the muscles of the pectoral region and upper limb have been covered. So what are this is the pectoralis minor muscle. The pectoralis major has been reflected. We know this is deltoid, isn't it? Once you cut the clavicle bone, you will be able to see and the cords of brachial plexus, we will be also seeing the axillary artery. Okay, that is. So you can see the cords of brachial plexus over here, we know around the inside which we have axillary artery. That means axillary artery is surrounded by the cords of brachial plexus, isn't it? Then, so if you just remember, like extensor compartment muscles are shown here, flexor compartment muscles are shown here. So this is the lateral aspect of the picture where you have the thumb, and this is the medial aspect of the picture. So from the lateral aspect, we know the very first muscle we have is brachioradialis. Okay, just adjacent to this we have extensor carpi radialis longus. Adjacent to this number 3 we have extensor carpi radialis brevis. Okay, this little big bulky muscle which is splitting into 4 slips is extensor digitorum, isn't it? Then these are deeper compartment muscles. If you remember, I gave you that code AEE, isn't it? What are those? Like we have abductor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis, and extensor pollicis longus. Okay, then. So the underlying bone, what you are finding towards the thumb, this is the radius bone. Okay, then. So this area is the whole thing you have is extensor retinaculum, what we have studied in detail. Then the tendons are passing underneath the extensor retinaculum. Okay, then. So this tendon is extensor carpi radialis longus. Then, so like that we have many extensor tendons. This becomes like extensor carpi ulnaris muscle because this is towards the little finger. Okay, these many details you need to just recollect. Okay, then. So this is flexor group of muscles, right? So we have, so this is the little finger and this is the thumb. That means this is medial aspect and this is lateral aspect. So the very first muscle we have is flexor carpi ulnaris, isn't it? Then, so like behind you have extensor carpi ulnaris, of course. Okay. So here we have the flexor retinaculum. So these are the thumb thenar, I said, right? So these are the thenar group of muscles. Okay, little finger we have hypothenar group of muscles. Okay, then. So we have like so many muscles of the flexor compartment which are of course not shown from above. These tendons of these muscles are now moving from the forearm and then they are entering into the palm. Okay. So what are the various muscles we see? We see the palmaris longus, flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpi ulnaris, flexor digitorum superficialis, isn't it? Flexor digitorum profundus, flexor pollicis longus tendons. Okay, which are moving like below the flexor retinaculum to enter into the palm and then get inserted into the digits. So again from the surface, if we try to see what are the various things we are able to see, see this trapezium shaped muscle, whatever we have is trapezius. Okay, this round contour of shoulder is produced by deltoid. Okay, and we didn't do head and neck yet. So this is the prominence which is produced by the 7th cervical vertebra prominence. Okay, then. So this whole outline what we are finding is actually scapula. So below the spine of scapula we have infraspinatus. We have just seen triangle of auscultation, isn't it, between the trapezius, latissimus dorsi and the medial border of the scapula where we have rhomboids muscle. So this is the triangle of auscultation. Okay, then. So this is the median furrow which is produced by the spines of the vertebrae. Okay, in this region we have thoracic vertebrae. Lower down we have lumbar vertebrae. We know this muscle prominence is produced by latissimus dorsi. If you remember, in the deeper compartment of the back muscles, we have come across erector spinae muscle. Erector spinae. Okay, again you can see few surface landmarks over here. This clavicle is very clearly shown. Okay, and this big muscle is pectoralis major, and this vein which moves here in the deltopectoral groove. If you remember, I told you between the deltoid and pectoralis major, the name of the groove is deltopectoral groove and the name of the vein is cephalic vein. Okay. So here we will get clavipectoral triangle. So the same image, you can see the bony landmark which is very clear here is clavicle. Obviously above clavicle we call it as supraclavicular fossa. Below it will be the infraclavicular fossa where we have clavipectoral triangle. Okay, this round bulge over the neck and shoulder region you are seeing here is produced by trapezius muscle. This point is the landmark of acromion. This round contour of shoulder is deltoid, right? This is the pectoralis major. We know deltoid muscle gets inserted on the deltoid tuberosity, which we find in the shaft of the humerus bone. Okay, front we have biceps brachii, behind we have triceps with 3 heads, isn't it? So these are all surface things which we have to appreciate. When the patient is coming to you, you should feel, palpate and try to express like what are the structures you are able to see from the surface of the body. So repetition again, we have deltoid muscle, isn't it? We have biceps brachii from the front. Behind we have triceps brachii. Okay, so this is biceps, this is triceps, and this is axilla. Posterior axillary fold is formed by latissimus dorsi. Anterior axillary fold is formed by pectoralis major. The other bony landmarks we have is the olecranon process of Anna. We will try to see more clearly. Meanwhile, you try to palpate in your own body also. Okay. Again, this is the repetition of like biceps, deltoid, triceps. Okay. This is the olecranon process of Anna. Extensor compartment muscles we have brachioradialis, extensor carpi radialis longus. Okay. So this is the acromion process of scapula. Okay. Now we are coming to the posterior view of the elbow. We know this is of course the triceps which we have studied earlier. Okay. So if you come to the lower point of the arm and at the junction of forearm and arm, that is nothing but the elbow, we can feel for the lateral epicondyle of the humerus, and on the medial aspect you will be able to palpate medial epicondyle of the humerus. Between them in the extended elbow, if you remember, we have olecranon process of Anna, which actually fixes in the olecranon fossa of the humerus bone. Okay, so we have extensor carpi radialis longus, right? Then extensor digitorum, extensor carpi ulnaris muscle. Okay, then more prominently the veins what we find towards the lateral aspect we have basilic vein, and towards the medial aspect we have towards the medial aspect we have basilic vein, and towards lateral aspect we have cephalic vein. So this is the posterior view of forearm and hand. So in the posterior view of forearm, again you are able to see the triceps muscle. We have brachioradialis, extensor carpi radialis longus, then olecranon process of Anna, so anconeus muscle and all extensor compartment muscles. Okay, this is the cubital fossa surface anatomy. So where, if you remember, in the roof of the cubital fossa, we come across this vein, that is the median cubital vein. More laterally, the muscle we have is brachioradialis. Superficial veins, what we have towards the thumb, that is the lateral side, we will have the cephalic vein. Okay. From the medial side, if you observe, we have basilic vein. Connecting cephalic and basilic, we have median cubital vein. So whatever tendon-like prominences we find here, these are all prominences produced by the flexor compartment muscles. So what are the flexor compartment muscles? We have already studied palmaris longus. Okay. Then we have flexor carpi radialis towards the radial side, isn't it? Flexor carpi ulnaris towards the ulnar side. Radial artery we can palpate here on the, if you remember, we have anatomical snuff box where we can easily palpate radial artery. This is the little finger, hence we will find the lower end of the ulna bone, which is the medial bone. So lower end of the ulna will show styloid process. You know, towards the thumb, the bony projection is thenar eminence. Towards the little finger, the muscular eminence we have is hypothenar. So muscles of the thumb Here we have the thenar muscles and here we have the hypothenar muscles. Okay, then so this is the dorsum of hand we are finding, and this area is very popular. I told you it comes as a very short note also, that is the anatomical snuff box, isn't it? So you are finding the tendon of extensor pollicis longus, okay, anteriorly, and posteriorly the tendon of the extensor pollicis brevis. These are all the tendons of extensor digitorum. And towards the little finger, we have extensor digiti minimi. Okay, that is. So towards little finger, we have ulna bone. Obviously, this bony projection would be styloid process of ulna. Okay. So one more picture has been shown. So this area again you can make it out as anatomical snuff box. So this is the tendon of extensor pollicis longus. So towards the thumb in the forearm we have radius bone. So this is the styloid process of radius. So these are the tendons of extensor digitorum. The knuckles what we have is metacarpophalangeal joints, okay, which is nothing but the, we are finding junction of the metacarpals and the proximal phalanges. This junction would be the metacarpophalangeal joints, which are nothing but knuckles. Then we have, these are the proximal interphalangeal joints, and these creases are indicating distal interphalangeal joints. Of course, these are the nails. Okay, so then the other surface anatomy what we see in the palm. So towards the thumb, the muscular prominence what we have is thenar eminence. Towards the little finger, we have hypothenar eminence. These are flexion creases of palm of the hand, isn't it? Which we have studied when we were doing the spaces of palm, isn't it? So proximal palmar crease and distal palmar crease, isn't it? So callus is an area which becomes hardened because of the excessive use of the skin. Like when we are doing gym or doing muscular movements or carrying heavy objects or doing household work, the skin becomes little thick. The thickened skin is nothing but callus over here. Okay. So these are the flexor tendons which are moving from the forearm into the palm. Most of them are moving below the flexor retinaculum, isn't it? So towards the thumb we have the tendon of the flexor carpi radialis. Okay, this point is the point of palpation for radial artery, because radial artery is on the lateral aspect, that is towards the thumb, right? So then towards the little finger, we have the tendon of flexor carpi ulnaris. More laterally, we have brachioradialis muscle. Okay, so let us continue. Now you can see here in this picture. Now let us try to palpate on yourself or on your friend or your brother, or you can just see you have clavicle bone which is subcutaneous and it can be palpated throughout its length. Okay, so this end which is medial end is the sternal end which is projecting little above the manubrium. So this is the manubrium of the sternum bone, and you can see the clavicle, this sternal end is actually projecting little above the manubrium. So between the sternal ends of two clavicles, that means this is sternal end of one clavicle, sternal end of two right and left clavicles. Here, exactly where blue dot has been shown, that area is actually called as suprasternal notch because it is present above the manubrium of the sternum. Okay, you call it as suprasternal notch, also called as jugular notch. Okay, the other end of the clavicle where arrow has been shown, that is acromial end of the clavicle, it can be palpated like medial to the lateral border of acromion. Okay, particularly when the shoulder is alternately raised and depressed. At this point, you would be able to palpate the acromion end of the clavicle. Okay. Then large vessels and nerves, which I have shown you in few pictures of my PowerPoint when I have started the lecture. We have seen they are actually passing posterior to the clavicle, to the convexity of the clavicle. So what are the large vessels we have seen over there? I have shown you cords of brachial plexus, surrounding the axillary artery and vein, right? That is. Now, so if you just observe this picture, you are finding a beak-like projection here, right? So which is nothing but the coracoid process of scapula. So the coracoid process of scapula can be felt deeply below the lateral one-third of the clavicle in the deltopectoral groove or clavipectoral triangle. Okay. So now let us see the boundaries of this clavipectoral triangle, which we have discussed many times, of course. So this clavipectoral triangle or the deltopectoral groove, that is the triangle, it's a slightly depressed area just inferior to the lateral one third of the clavicle. So it is bounded. So what is the superior boundary we are finding here? Clavicle. What is the lateral boundary? What is the name of this muscle? That is deltoid. And what is the name of this muscle we have? Pectoralis major. So medially it is bound by the clavicular head of pectoralis major. Laterally it is bound by deltoid. And superiorly it is bound by clavicle. So this triangular area, depressed area, is nothing but clavipectoral triangle or deltopectoral triangle. Okay. Then again, the same thing. So clavipectoral fascia, if you remember, it is pierced by certain structures which I have been repeating in every lecture. So what are the various structures you see? Cephalic vein will be piercing. Apart from that, the thoracoacromial artery, lateral pectoral nerve and lymph nodes. Isn't it? That is. No. This is the posterior aspect of the back. You can see scapula is seen. This is the spine of the scapula. This is the acromion process. Clavicle is also visible, isn't it? So this is the acromial end of the clavicle, and the junction between the acromial end of the clavicle and the acromion process, you call it as acromioclavicular joint. You are finding the upper end of the humerus and shaft of the humerus. Now let us see what are the bony landmarks which you can palpate on your friend or your sibling. Okay, so lateral and posterior border of the acromion meet to form this acromial angle. So this is the lateral border, this is the posterior border. If you join them, you will be able to palpate this angle, that would be acromial angle. So inferior to the acromion, the deltoid muscle forms. This is the round contour of the shoulder, right? Then. So now just try to observe, like this is the clavicle bone, the extreme lateral end, we have acromioclavicular joint, we have acromion process, greater tubercle of the humerus. Okay, coracoid process, I said it is below the lateral one third of the clavicle, right? So that is the coracoid process, pectoralis major. This point is the sternoclavicular joint. Okay, this point is nothing but sternoclavicular joint, medial to which you have jugular notch. Okay, then, so if you observe this bone, we know this is humerus. So this is the head of the humerus and it has two bony elevations, that is the greater tubercle and lesser tubercle. So the greater tubercle you try to palpate on yourself as we discuss now. See, greater tubercle can be felt when the arm is by the side. Okay, and you are trying to palpate it deep through the deltoid muscle, because round contour is deltoid. Just palpate deltoid deeper, then you would be able to palpate the greater tubercle. Below the acromion, you would be able to feel for the greater tubercle. So in this position, greater tubercle is most lateral bony point of the shoulder. So this is the shaft of the humerus. Okay, then we have, so this is the lower end of the humerus. On the medial side we have medial epicondyle, and on the lateral side we have lateral epicondyle. This is very easy, you try to please palpate in your own body. Okay, medial and lateral epicondyles, and the medial aspect and lateral aspects of the elbow respectively. Okay, so this is the outline or surface anatomy of clavicle bone. This is the medial end which is close to the manubrium part of the sternum to form the sternoclavicular joint. Above the manubrium you have the suprasternal notch, isn't it? Then also called as jugular notch. This is the glenohumeral joint, nothing but the shoulder joint. Okay. Below the lateral one third of the clavicle, you would be able to palpate coracoid process, isn't it? Then, now, what is the medial bone we have? See, this is the medial aspect of the forearm. On the medial aspect, we have ulna bone. Now, this is the head of the ulna, which forms rounded subcutaneous prominence that can be easily palpated on the medial side of the dorsal aspect of the wrist. You know, head of the ulna is lower down, isn't it? Upper part we have olecranon process. Lower part we have head of the ulna, and then we have styloid process. So head of the ulna, it is forming a rounded subcutaneous prominence which can be easily palpated on the medial side of the dorsal aspect of the wrist. Then below which, if you just trace it little lower down, you would be able to feel for styloid process. Okay, distal to the ulnar head, you would be able to palpate the ulnar styloid process, and you should keep your hand in supinated position. I hope you remember supination. So is the supination? See, I told you this is supinated pose and this is the pronated pose, isn't it? So if you want to palpate, here this is little finger is towards the, which aspect we have? Ulna bone. So we have head of the ulna, lower down if you go, we have the styloid process of the ulna. Okay. Then, now if you just trace it from the olecranon process you would be able to see from behind, isn't it? So olecranon process and the posterior border of ulna, they lie subcutaneously and they can be palpated very easily. Try to palpate. You are always like teenagers and you of course thin build, it's very easy to palpate in your own body also. Okay. Then when the elbow is extended, so if you remember I told you this point when we were doing osteology, so this is the olecranon process of ulna bone, isn't it? Towards the radius, this is the lateral epicondyle, towards the ulna, this is the medial epicondyle. So lateral epicondyle, olecranon process, lateral epicondyle, olecranon process and medial epicondyle, they are lying in the same plane. If the elbow is extended, isn't it? So they lie in straight line. But when the elbow is flexed, you will see the lateral epicondyle, medial epicondyle and the olecranon process, they form isosceles triangle. This is what we need to check when we are doing the x-rays to check if this normal triangular pattern is retained or not. If this is displaced, this shows the dislocation of elbow joint or it may indicate some fractures. Okay? Then. Once you are done with ulna bone, towards the medial side, lateral side, we have radius bone. And head of the radius is above. Lower down, we have the styloid process, isn't it? So head of the radius can be palpated. You can actually rotate in the depression on posterolateral aspect of extended elbow, just distal to the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. This is the lateral epicondyle. Just below that, you can easily palpate the head of the radius. More so, if you just try to supinate and pronate your forearm, you can see it would be rotating in the annular ligament, which binds the head of the radius into the radial fossa of the ulna bone. As you come down, you will see this is the projection which is called as radial styloid process, which can be palpated on the lateral side of the wrist in the anatomical snuff box. It's approximately 1 centimeter distal to that of ulna. So again, these are the surface things which I have discussed when I have started my class. Okay, now this is a comparative picture. This round contour of shoulder, you can easily name this muscle this as deltoid. In front, the fibers are clavicular fibers. Behind, the fibers are coming from the spine of the scapula. In between, in the middle, we have acromial fibers. It's a multipinnate muscle. We know it is the point where it is getting inserted is the deltoid tuberosity. Then this point, which has been named as number 2, is nothing but biceps brachiae. Behind, what we have is triceps muscle. Okay. Okay, so below biceps brachiae we have brachialis. Okay, and then as you move down, so what are the various other muscles we have? The seventh point, you can see this is the lateral epicondyle of the humerus. This bony projection, what you are finding here is the olecranon process of ulna bone. Okay, then the first muscle which has been named as number 4 is brachioradialis. Below brachioradialis, we have extensor carpi radialis longus. Okay, here we have a fascia which covers the anconeus muscle and also common extensor tendons. Okay, you can pause the video and you can just compare the like labeled like a dissected picture with surface anatomy picture so that you can palpate in your own body. Okay, then we have metacarpal bones. Although they are overlapped by all long extensor tendons of the fingers, they can still be palpated because our skin over here is very thin, muscles are not very bulky, right? Then we have the heads of metacarpals. They are articulating with the proximal phalanges and they form the knuckles. I hope you remember me showing knuckles previously also. See here. See this point we have is knuckles. Okay, so this is actually the junction between the metacarpals and proximal phalanges. Okay, so hence you call it as metacarpophalangeal joints. Okay, then so heads of the metacarpals, they form knuckles, and notice that third metacarpal head is most prominent. Always counting, I always tell you to start from thumb. So that means this one. Okay, then the dorsal aspect of the phalanges can be palpated very easily. The knuckles are fingers. So like we have the heads of the, so that means this, like this is the proximal interphalangeal joint and this is the distal interphalangeal joint. Okay, that is then. So now we know very well like this area is axilla. Now it is surface anatomy. We know axilla has lot of hair. Okay, this is the base what we have. This is the anterior axillary fold. We know pretty well the name of this muscle is pectoralis major. So anterior axillary fold is formed by pectoralis major. We also know pretty well behind is latissimus dorsi and teres major, which would be forming the posterior axillary fold. Okay, you can actually feel like your own body, you can check your own muscles forming the anterior and posterior axillary folds. Okay, then so axilla should be examined with the forearm supported and the pectoral muscles relaxed. When the arm is by the side, the inferior part of the head of the humerus can be easily palpated. So that means the position what has been shown over here is described here so that you can easily feel for the structures what we find in axilla. So what do we have inside the axilla? Contents of axilla? We have axillary artery, we have axillary vein, axillary group of lymph nodes and cords of brachial plexus. And pulsating there would be only artery. Just keep the tips of your finger in the just pressing the floor of the axilla, you will be able to feel for the pulsations, that is nothing but axillary artery pulsation. Okay, then medial wall of axilla, if you just go back to theory class of axilla, I already told you it is formed by upper four ribs which are covered by serratus anterior muscle. Okay, the serrations of which can be seen and felt in muscular subject. So for 2019 batch, serratus anterior has come as an essay question. So anything is possible. So we have discussed this serratus anterior in our previous classes, isn't it? Now coming, once we are done with the axilla, arm also have shown you many times during my lecture just now. So what are the various muscles you have? The rounded contour is produced by deltoid. If you want to observe it more clearly, keep your arm in abducted position. That too as though somebody is stopping you to do the abduction. That's what is called as movement against resistance. Okay, then so we know like in front we have biceps, behind we have triceps. Okay, they form bulge anteriorly and posteriorly respectively. The bulges are actually separated by the grooves. Okay, the medial and lateral grooves. We also know like from our previous classes From the lateral aspect, we have cephalic vein, and from the medial aspect, we have basilic vein. Cephalic vein journey continues in the deltopectoral groove. Both of them will be draining into axillary vein. Okay, so this is the biceps brachii. Biceps tendon would be going in the cubital fossa, if you remember, isn't it? So biceps insertion is on the radial tuberosity. Triceps is behind. You have to go towards the olecranon process where it is getting inserted. Okay, that is, this is biceps. If you just go deeper to biceps, then you would be able to feel for brachialis. Okay, this is from behind, as you can see this picture. Okay, so you can see this behind. What is the bulky muscle which we see on the posterior compartment of arm? The only muscle you have there is triceps. So it has a lateral head, it has a long head. You just like retract these two heads, then you would be able to see in the middle medial head. Okay, then so this is little finger. Obviously towards little finger side we have ulna bone, so this bony prominence you find is the head of the ulna. Okay, then now brachial artery also we can actually feel the pulsations, because like it can be actually felt where exactly on the medial border of the biceps brachii. Okay, for compression of the artery in the upper half of the arm, it is pushed laterally against the humerus. That means you should press it against the humerus so as to feel for the pulsations. Okay, lower half is pushed posteriorly. So in the cubital fossa, it lies beneath the bicipital aponeurosis. We know this also. Isn't it? MBBR structures I told you. B is actually standing for brachial artery. Actually the pulsations what we record in order to examine the blood pressure. We choose which artery? Brachial artery. Isn't it? Which is easily accessible right in front of the elbow joint, corresponding to the cubital fossa. We know at the neck of the radius, like just below the head of the radius, we know like brachial artery divides into two. Laterally it is named as radial artery, medially it is named as ulnar artery. Now, this is the cubital fossa region. So, this is the medial aspect where, because how to identify, this has been named as medial epicondyle. So, towards the medial side, the name of the vein we have is basilic vein, and towards the lateral side, the name of the vein what we have is cephalic vein. Connecting the basilic and cephalic veins, we have median cubital vein. If you remember, into the median cubital vein, there is one vein which is opening here, which is called as medial vein of forearm, also called as median antebrachial vein. Okay, this is a very easily accessible vein which you can see in your own cubital fossa, bluish, easily visible, so that it can be easily traced, and we can collect intravenous blood. If you want to do any examinations, you can give IV fluids and also IV injections choosing this median cubital vein. Okay, so the mass of long flexor tendons of the forearm, it forms the medial border of the cubital fossa. We know because medial epicondyle is common flexor origin. Lateral epicondyle is common extensor origin. Isn't it? So that is. Now coming to the dorsum of hand, try to look into your own dorsum. We have discussed when we were doing the venous drainage of upper limb. I have named this as dorsal venous network. Medial continuation is cephalic vein. Lateral continuation is cephalic vein. Towards little finger, medial continuation is basilic vein. And if you try to extend your digits, you are finding the tendons of extensor digitorum. Isn't it? This is the anatomical snuff box. We will discuss as we move on. So this is the dorsal venous network. Superficial veins can be seen on the dorsum of the hand. Okay. Then, so the surface marking of the radial artery would be, I told you radial artery, the neck of the radius, the brachial artery is finally dividing into two. So you have to start it from there. It can be drawn by a line extending from the midpoint of the cubital fossa to the base of the styloid process of radius bone. So this is the surface anatomy of radial artery. We know like pulsations of the radial artery can be felt where? In the anatomical snuff box. Very easy to palpate over there. Okay, so that is actually corresponding to the anterior to the distal thirds of the radius bone. Okay, then this point we have, that is, I'll show you anatomical snuff box because the chief content over there we have is radial artery only, though we have discussed previously. Now again with the help of surface anatomy, let us discuss. So the anatomical snuff box, anteriorly it is bounded by abductor pollicis longus and extensor pollicis brevis tendon. Posteriorly it is bounded by extensor pollicis longus. Okay, then the proximal part of the anatomical snuff box where this green arrow has been shown, what is the name of this bone? Radius bone. What is the name of this bony projection? Styloid process, which is palpable in the anatomical snuff box, the floor. We also find this pink arrow is actually showing the scaphoid bone, okay, which is seen like at the distal part of the floor of the anatomical snuff box. Okay, so what is the importance? Why is it so important? See here, the radial artery. Which one is the radial artery? Which has been numbered as 1. Okay, so this is the radial artery. It can be easily palpated against the like floor of the anatomical snuff box. More superficially, we know it is crossed by this number 3 is cephalic vein. It is also crossed by the superficial branch of radial nerve. Okay. Then, so now if you observe, so like if you just want to like see what are the various structures you see in the arm and forearm, we know the continuation of axillary arteries, brachial artery, it is dividing into radial artery laterally and ulnar artery medially. We also know the course of median nerve, ulnar nerve, radial goes behind, isn't it? Then, now, in the palm, you have also discussed about the superficial palmar arch and the deep palmar arches. So, superficial palmar arch is located in the central part of the palm. Okay, when you are just allowing the palm to be extended at the distal border of the fully extended thumb. This is the distal border. So, distal border, so this is the distal border, right? Of the fully extended thumb, we would be able to locate the superficial palmar arch. Okay, so this is the deep palmar arch, which is located again in the central part of the palm, but the line drawn across the palm at the level of proximal border of fully extended. So this is the proximal border and this is the distal border. At the proximal border, we have deep palmar arch. At the distal border, we have superficial palmar arch. So this is deep palmar arch at the proximal border, superficial palmar arch at the distal border corresponding. Both are present at the central part of the palm. So that's what is surface anatomy. Try to just palpate and see so that you will be able to palpate well when you start practicing as you move through this MBBS course. Wish you good luck. Thank you.